Hi boys and girls, it's Teacher Katie here from the Walla Walla YMCA Child Development Department, and this evening, instead of a Mr. Men book, I have a Little Miss book, and it's a smaller book, so I'll try and bring the pictures really close to the screen. It's called Little Miss Magic, so let's read this together. Early one morning, in summer, Little Miss Magic awoke in the bedroom of Abracadabra Cottage, which is where she lived. She yawned a yawn and got out of bed. She went to the bathroom to clean her teeth. Sunshine's in the way. Squeeze, she said to the tube of toothpaste. And guess what? The tube of toothpaste jumped up and squeezed itself onto Little Miss Magic's toothbrush. Honestly, Little Miss Magic isn't called Little Miss Magic for nothing. When she tells something to do something, it does. Ooh, see the toothpaste? She went downstairs to the kitchen. Boil, she said to the kettle, and it did. Toast, she said to the toaster. Spread, she said to a knife, and the knife jumped up and spread some butter on the toast. Pour, she said to the coffee pot, and she sat down to breakfast. Don't you wish you could make things do things just like that? So she hardly has to do anything. She just tells everything what to do. She was enjoying a second cup of coffee when there was a knock at the kitchen door. Open, she said to the door. And as it did, there stood Mr. Happy, looking exactly the opposite. You don't look your usual self, remarked Little Miss Magic. What's the matter? Everything, replied Mr. Happy. Come in and tell me about it, she said. Have a cup of coffee. Pour, she said to the coffee pot. So in this picture you can see Mr. Happy, but he doesn't look very happy at all, boys and girls. He looks the opposite. He looks sad. Oh, let's find out why. Now, said Little Miss Magic, what is it? It's Mr. Tickle. We know Mr. Tickle, boys and girls, replied Mr. Happy. He's become absolutely impossible. What do you mean? Asked Little Miss Magic. Well, went on Mr. Happy, he used to go around tickling people every now and then, but now he's going around tickling people all the time. He sighed. Little Miss Magic looked at him. It can't be that bad, she said. It's worse, said Mr. Happy unhappily. Cheer up, she grinned. Come on, she said, and off they set from Abracadabra Cottage. After you, said Little Miss Magic to Mr. Happy. Close, she said to the door. And I bet the door closed, boys and girls. Also, they're going to go and figure it out together. Mr. Tickle was in full cry. What a Monday morning he was having. He tickled Mr. Mean until he moaned, and Mr. Greedy until he groaned, and Little Miss Sunshine until she shivered, and Mr. Quiet until he quivered, and Little Miss Plump until she pleaded, and Little Miss Shy until she sobbed. Not to mention the postman, a policeman, the doctor, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a worm. Also, he's been up to all sorts of mischievous things, tickling so many people. Aha! Cried Mr. Tickle as he spied Little Miss Magic and Mr. Happy. Anyone for tickles? And he rushed up to them, reaching out those extraordinarily long arms of his with those particularly ticklish fingers on the ends of them. Little Miss Magic looked at Mr. Happy. I see what you mean, she said, and she winked. Can you wink, boys and girls? Look, wink one eye, then the other. Oh, so she now understands what Mr. Happy was talking about, but she winked. So I bet she has a plan. She pointed at Mr. Tickle's extraordinarily long arm. "Shrink," she said. And then she pointed at Mr. Tickle's long left arm. "Shrink," she said again. And as you remember, when Little Miss Magic tells something to do something, what does it do, boys and girls? It does it. So now his arms have shrunk. Mr. Tickle's arms were suddenly not extraordinarily long. They were extraordinarily ordinary. "That's not fair," he cried. "You've spoiled my fun." "It might have been fun for you," remarked Mr. Happy, "but it wasn't much fun for anybody else." "Come and see me tomorrow," said Little Miss Magic to Mr. Tickle. Also, he looks totally different now, boys and girls. Look, he's just got little arms, and he's really frustrated and upset about it. But that's his consequence. "There," she said to Mr. Happy. "Happy now?" Mr. Happy smiled that famous smile of his. "I'll say," he said. "Come on," he added, "I'll buy you lunch." And off they went to his favourite restaurant, Smilers. That's the name of the restaurant, boys and girls, that Mr. Happy likes. Mr. Happy likes Smilers. On Tuesday, Mr. Tickle went around to Abracadabra Cottage. He knocked at the front door. "Open," said a voice inside. "Oh, hello," smiled Little Miss Magic as the door opened by itself and she saw who was standing there. "Come in." So there's Mr. Tickle. He knocked on the door and Little Miss Magic used her magic by telling the door to open. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen. "I expect you'd like me to make your arms long again," she said. "Oh, yes, please," said Mr. Tickle. "Very well," she said. Mr. Tickle's face lit up. "On one condition," she added. His face fell. "You are only allowed one tickle a day." "One tickle a day," said Mr. Tickle. "That's not very much." "Promise," said Little Miss Magic. Mr. Tickle sighed. "Promise," he said. So he's made a promise. If he gets his arms back, he's only allowed to do one tickle a day. I think that's a good compromise. "Grow," said Little Miss Magic. And both Mr. Tickle's arms grew back to their original long length. "Now don't forget," she reminded him, "one tickle a day. Or else," she added. Mr. Tickle went out through the door. "Goodbye," she said to him. "Shut," she said to the door. So look, Mr. Tickle's got his arms. He doesn't look very happy though, boys and girls. Mr. Tickle stood outside Little Miss Magic's cottage. "Ah, well," he thought, "one tickle a day is better than no tickles a day." It was then that he saw one of the downstairs windows of Abracadabra Cottage was open. "One tickle a day," he thought, and a small smile came to his face. One tickle a day. So he sees one of the windows of Little Miss Magic's house open. Who do you think he's going to do his one tickle on that day, boys and girls? And on that Tuesday morning, as one of those extraordinarily long arms reached in through the open window of Abracadabra Cottage, the small smile on the face of Mr. Tickle turned into a giant grin. One tickle a day, he thought, as he tickled Little Miss Magic. Oh, isn't that fun? I love the Mr. Men and Little Miss books. I have lots more to come, boys and girls. Have a wonderful evening. Bye.